Hello and welcome everyone. Welcome to a new month of September. And in today's market snapshot, we'll be looking at the top events that are expected to be moving the markets this week. So we know that Monday is usually a slow day, but we are seeing a lot of activity on gold as well as silver. Basically started with a very strong bullish run, almost getting into new all-time highs. So once you join in, kindly say hi on the comment section. So besides that, we'll also be doing some technical analysis on major pairs. We'll be looking at gold, silver, as well as top equity indices. Once we go through these, hopefully everyone will be able to trade from an informed perspective. So as always, this session does not constitute any form of investment advice. It's not a recommendation to trade, so you should always do your own due diligence. So let's begin right away by looking at the economic calendar. Kindly give me a sec. Awesome. So early this morning, we had news coming in from the Asian session. First, we had building consents for New Zealand coming in at 5.4%, a big jump to the positive compared to the previous drop of 6%. So on the other hand, we had data from Japan. In this case, we had capital spending quarter over year with a surprise uptick of 7.6%. Then the manufacturing PMI came in weaker than expected at 49.7 for Japan. So the MI inflation gauge for Australia came in at negative 0.3%, which basically indicates that prices are dropping. Then we had the ANZ job advertisements month over month came in better than expected at 0.1%, which was higher than the previous reading of negative 0.6%. So we also had building approvals, which took a big dive, down 8.2% compared to the prior month's growth of 12.2%. So company operating profits quarter over quarter were also down 2.4% compared to the previous reading of negative 1.0%. So going forward for the rest of the day, mostly we'll be looking at manufacturing PMIs as well as services PMIs, mainly from Europe. In this case, there will be a key focus on France as well as Germany. Then for the New York session, we expect a very slow session, mainly because it's a bank holiday in both the US and Canada, where they will be celebrating Labor Day. So speaking of Labor Day, this week will be mainly dominated by labor market news in the US. And this being the first week of the month, in the first Friday of the month, we will be having the US non-farm payrolls. So on Tuesday, we'll be looking at the ISM manufacturing PMI from the US. In this case, there is an expectation of a slight increase to 48.9 compared to the prior reading of 48.0. We will also be looking at the GDP from Australia. This will be at 4:30 a.m. on Wednesday. Then a speech from Reserve Bank of Australia Governor Bullock. This will be at 11 a.m. Then officially we get the first job market data point, which will be the JOLTS job openings. So it's basically a track on what's happening in the job market by following the job advertisements. So in this case, we're expecting a slight slowdown to 7.24 million, down from 7.44 million. So further down the week, we also be looking at the Fed's Beige Book at 9 p.m. on Wednesday. Then CPI from Switzerland. In this case, we're expecting zero change in prices. Then we get the second data point on the US labor market, which will be the ADP non-farm employment change. This is a private sector report. In this case, we're expecting that the US created 71,000 jobs in the prior month. Then we also be looking at the unemployment claims, which are expected to remain the same as the prior week at 229K. We also be looking at the ISM services PMI at 5 p.m. on Thursday. And of course, the main event of the week will be the official non-farm payrolls on Friday at 3:30 p.m. The official expected number is 74,000 jobs. And for Canada, we're expecting an increase of 9.4 thousand jobs. So in this case, there will be a lot of focus on the US labor market, mainly because of the tug of war we have seen between US President Donald Trump and the Fed Chair Jerome Powell. So Trump has been pushing the Fed to cut interest rates to 1%, and Jerome Powell and of course the other FOMC members have been refusing to be aggressive in cutting rates, mainly because they feel that there's still threats of increasing inflation. So far the market is pricing in very high probability that the Fed will be cutting rates on the next meeting. So if you check from the CME website, there is an 87.6% probability that the Fed will be cutting rates on the September meeting. So in this case, we know that there is a really big push on the Fed to cut interest rates. So if we follow what Trump has been doing, he says he'll have a Fed majority soon to push rates lower after firing Cook. So US President Trump said he'll soon have a majority of his nominees on the Federal Reserve Board who will back his desire to slash interest rates. Trump's comment at a cabinet meeting came after he moved to fire central bank governor Lisa Cook, an appointee of former President Joe Biden. So Trump has already appointed 2 board members, and he picked Stephen Miran, one of his top economic advisors, to serve out the rest of the retired governor Adriana Kugler's term. So once Trump has a majority on the Fed, then he'll be able to push his agenda of cutting interest rates fast, and already we can see the markets reacting to that. So rate cuts tend to be negative for the dollar, so you can notice that the dollar has been pretty weak. Even as of this morning, we have seen the dollar weakening, and in return, we have seen gold moving into newer highs as well as silver. So looking at other news in the market, first we look at a comparison of currencies. So since the market opened today, we have seen the euro being the strongest currency, which is up 0.3% against the dollar. The New Zealand dollar, the pound, Australian dollar, and the Swiss franc are also slightly higher than the USD, whereas the weakest currency has been the Japanese yen, which is down slightly with about 0.09%. So looking at the month-to-date performance, sorry, now we're in a new month, so it's just one day. So let's just look at the past month and the way the currencies have performed. So far, the UK pound has been the strongest, gaining by 1.92%, whereas the New Zealand dollar has been the weakest, down 0.14% against the USD. So looking at other highlights in the market, there was a very comprehensive article on Yahoo Finance, basically talking about the top events this week. So this week ahead will bring US investors just 4 days of trading and a crucial jobs report. The first since July's dramatic revisions and the abrupt change at the top of the Bureau of Labor Statistics, which surprised investors. So after the prior revisions that we saw over the past 2 months, US President Trump was forced to fire the head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And after firing them, so the new head will be reporting their first job market report this Friday. So the August jobs report's importance for investors is downstream of its importance for the Federal Reserve, who will be serving on the Federal Reserve's board of governors by the end of week ahead is far from certain. So we're expecting that there will be a replacement for Fed member Lisa Cook. And if that replacement happens this week, then there will be more confidence that Trump will be able to influence the Fed to cut rates faster. So last week, Trump sought to remove Fed Governor Lisa Cook from the central bank's board of governors. Cook challenged the decision, and a hearing on Friday left the decision in legal limbo. So a Senate hearing for Trump's nominee will fill a temporary vacancy on the board, which is set to be happening later this week. So outside of the monthly jobs report, labor market data will be a focus this week, with reports on job openings and reading on private payroll growth, that is the ADP non-farm payrolls, which will be happening on Wednesday and Thursday respectively. So on the earnings side, there is still quite a good number of companies that will be reporting, ranging from Salesforce. We'll also be watching Broadcom earnings, Lululemon, DocuSign, as well as Macy's. So clearly, we will be seeing the month kick off with some pretty good earnings, which could be a key driver of the Dow SP 500 as well as the Nasdaq. So other than that, trying to see if there's any other highlight on the article. None. I don't think there's any other big highlight. Of course, there was Alibaba's earnings, and this has driven the stock high by about 12.9% since the market opened. And this was after they reported the investment in AI, which is basically bringing in good cash. So among the key highlights in the stock market today will be Alibaba. But then for the US side, of course, for the New York Stock Exchange, the Nasdaq will be crossed, mainly because it's Labor Day today. So more trading will be expected on Tuesday once the market reopens. So other key highlights include the German manufacturing PMI, which came in at 49.8, missing expectations of 49.9. Trying to see if there's anything else I may have missed on the updates. So China manufacturing PMI hits a 5-month high. So that rating dog, China general manufacturing PMI rose to 50.5 in August 2025, beating both July's reading and consensus 49.5. It was the highest figure since March as output returned to growth, with new orders posting the fastest gain in 5 months, while a decline in foreign sales eased. So those are the key highlights as of today. Checking to see if there's anything else we may have missed. So also, I remember last week introduced you to the sentiment survey on my FX book. So sometimes when you see there's a big difference, for instance, in the allocations of positions in a pair, then it can give you some trading ideas. So as of this morning, the total traders who are currently trading Euro USD, 73% of their positions are short and 27% are long, meaning that there's a huge imbalance. There's a lot of traders who are currently trying to short the Euro USD. So most of the time, as we all know, sometimes there's a majority of retail traders being on the wrong side of the market, which increases the likelihood that the Euro USD will be moving higher for the day. So now, today, I'll be introducing yet another concept. So this was the my FX book sentiment allocations for Euro USD. Of course, there's many other pairs. You can check it out on your own time. So the next concept I want to introduce today is the September effect. So normally, whenever we enter the month of September in trading, stocks tend to underperform during the month of September. So main reason this happens is that there's a lot of theories that happen, and also the fact that traders expect the market to be slow, they act that way, and it becomes more like a self-fulfilling prophecy. So also there are other reasons why the markets tend to behave the way it does on September. So the September effect refers to the historically weak stock market returns observed during the month of September. In fact, September has been the worst performing month on average, going back to the last 100 years. So the September effect is a case of a calendar-based market anomaly in the sense that it occurs without any real causal link or event, challenging the efficient market hypothesis. So there's a statistical case for the September effect depending on the period analyzed, but much of the theory is anecdotal. So in recent years, median return for September has actually become positive. So normally there's that expectation. Of course, that happens in the mostly US equities. But then when you look at the currencies and what's happening in the market right now, they still increase volatility. So there's a good chance we'll be having some pretty good positions. So while the September effect might present a market anomaly in the sense that it violates the assumption of market efficiency, the effect is not overwhelming and, more importantly, is not predictive in any useful sense. This is because the time period under consideration will matter a great deal. So, for instance, if an individual had a bet against September over the last 100 years, that individual would have made an overall profit if the investor had made that bet only since 2014, though that investor would have literally lost money. So this means that on average, September tends to be a weak month for the stock market, but in some instances, it tends to be positive. So outside of that, trying to see if there's any other highlight I may have missed. Well, I believe that's it. Now we can jump into some technical analysis. So checking the comment section. Good morning, Sean. You can see Rachel Kamau in the house. Dismas, Joseph Gisharu, J Squad, Smith FX, Odiwa, thank you for joining. You can see a person using the username Great, Robert Cavale, Johnny, and Thomas. Thank you guys, and thank you for joining. So there's a question here. Come again on EURUSD with regard to MyFX book. So MyFX book is a data aggregating website. So in this case, we know that there's a lot of traders who connect their accounts to MyFX book for tracking performances and everything. So when all these traders take positions, MyFX book will not tell you what they have bought or sold, but then they will do a summary showing you the sentiment in the market. So in this case, for instance, for EURUSD, it shows that 73% of all the positions that have been taken in EURUSD are short, meaning that those traders are going sell side, and then 27% are long, meaning that they are going buy side. So normally you would expect that a majority of retail traders will be on the losing side of the market. So in this case, it makes more sense to be looking at these extreme levels, especially if something gets to 80% and so on. Then you can easily go against it. But you have to backtest it yourself and see if it works for you. So that being said, let's do some technical analysis and try to understand what are the prevailing market patterns. So I'll be starting with silver. We have never seen silver trading at $40 per ounce. So clearly, this has been a very strong bullish momentum since Friday last week. So if you look at the daily time frame, we are going into uncharted territory. There are no candlesticks on the left, and this basically means that this is a momentum trade. It's well in. So also, if you look at the chart of gold, it's also making a similar move. And this is basically the market showing you that it's pricing in expectations that the Fed will be cutting rates faster. So in this case, for gold, we are approaching a new all-time high. So the previous all-time high was that $500 per ounce of gold. And today, I believe the highest we have seen is that $495. Sorry, that $490. So clearly, the bullish momentum is just building up. So even though we have seen the market slow down a bit during the Tokyo session, there's an expectation that in the London session, we'll be seeing an extended momentum. And of course, it's easy to target the 3,500 price action area or even higher as the momentum builds. Just a sec, getting out of notifications here. So other than that, there was the question of Euro USD. So remember, we have shown that out of retail traders are currently short on Euro USD. But then from the price action, especially since this morning, the euro has just been moving higher. Even though it's testing a major resistance area, you will notice that we have a trend line here that has been tested 3 times and now is the 4th time. So all we are seeing is more bullish momentum, and there's a likelihood that the market could be breaking and moving higher. So if you look at the dollar index, it has been pretty weak. Last Friday, there was a big drop during the New York session. And of course, in the first 2 sessions today, in both Australia and Japan, we have only seen the dollar continue to weaken. And with the expectations of a September rate cut, then there's a good chance that we continue seeing a weak dollar. So currently at 97.5, we could be seeing some more weaknesses in the dollar. So in this case, strong likelihood that the Euro USD breaks out. So for pound USD, we're also testing a key resistance area. And if you go to a smaller time frame, in this case, the 15 minutes chart, you'll notice that we already broke the resistance, and now we are looking at a retest. So this was the breakout, the market got back, and now it seems like we should be moving higher. So in this case, in my experience, most of the time, whenever there is such a break, this is usually an easy target of the previous high. And of course, if we break above that, then we start looking at these levels, which were previously acting as resistance. In this case, 1.359 as the next target once we breach this resistance at 1.35439. So for dollar trading against the Swiss franc, we had a breakout towards the lower side last week, and clearly the market is attempting to build momentum lower. So from the daily time frame, you can see it has been a consistent push towards the lower side with a lot of noise throughout the last month. That is within the month of August. Month of August was pretty noisy for the pair, but now that we are seeing the market breach the lower side, good chance that we move lower this week. For the dollar trading against the yen, I would say for the past couple of weeks, 4, 5, 6 weeks, all we have been seeing is more like sideways momentum, meaning that this market has been moving this way. So now, moving on to a smaller time frame, in this case, the 1 hour time frame, we know that this has been a key level support. The market has been bouncing off this area. And today, it seems like the same is playing out. Of course, this looks to me more like a range. So now it seems like the market is moving back to the day's high. So it's more of a market that is moving sideways since last week, Thursday and Friday. So looking at other pairs, in this case, looking at the Australian dollar, with a pretty weak dollar in the market, all we have been seeing is a strong run upside. And anytime the market attempts to move further back downwards, all we have been seeing is buyers coming back in and pushing the prices higher. So right now we are testing a key level resistance, and once it's broken, perhaps we could see more momentum to the upside. So in such a case, you know that the market is more of a consolidation, and we wait for the market to break. On the oil side, we are seeing a very strong rally, especially after the positive Chinese manufacturing data. So good chance that we retest Friday's high. So it's a pretty good start of the week and demand for oil traders. So the current set of candlesticks pushing back the last 4 hours indicates some very strong momentum towards the upside. So on the equity side, we have the Nikkei 225 index bouncing off a key level support. Here we saw the market dropping sharply, and now it's reversing, which means that we are likely to head towards the upper trend line. So good chance that this momentum keeps building up, and we see the market retesting this particular trend line here. So for the UK stock market index, that's the UK 100, we had a breakout towards the upper side, and this is on the 1 hour time frame. So here we are looking at a market that was consistently pushing lower as of last week. But now as we enter into a new week, you'll notice that the market was really struggling to form newer lows. So what we were experiencing is some kind of support and consolidation building up here. And now that you have a break, there's a likelihood that we continue pushing higher for the day. So On the Chinese side, for the China A50 cash index, remember recently we had a very strong rally and then a pullback. And then after this pullback, you can see the market recovered, but didn't quite get to the previous high. And this week, we could be seeing yet another push, especially with companies engaged in AI gaining popularity among Chinese investors. So good chance that we will be seeing some positive bounce from this as we look to retest last week's high. So on the US side, we have the Nasdaq 100 index. Here you can see that there was a very big drop on Friday, and we created some level of support around here. And this morning, the market has retested that support, and after retesting, you can see the long tails on the lower side indicating some form of rejection, which likely means that now the market is bouncing, and we could be seeing a push towards 23,581 price level. So for the Dow, it's still the same thing, a market that had a big sell-off on Friday. This week, we've opened with a gap to the upside. Market closed the gap, and now it seems like we are headed back higher. Of course, the high of the day could be a nice target as the market looks to recover. So you look at the US 500, also the same kind of correlation. Of course, we should be looking at a short-term target with low volatility of around 6,486, which is the previous high here. Bitcoin had a big sell-off last week, but then as we start a new week, you can see how we have just bounced strongly. So this is indicative of strong momentum coming into the market. And of course, if this is sustained, we could be looking at a market that makes a rally towards last week's highs. So last week's high was around here. This was the beginning of the week, and midweek we had this area becoming super important. So clearly, there's a good chance that we see an extension of the rally to 111.9 and 113.4. So those are likely targets for the week. So for the New Zealand dollar, clearly a very strong push. I remember we discussed this last week. Once the market broke this particular trend line, this was our target. So the market finally got here as of this morning, and now there's a good chance of an extension, and an extension would likely pump towards 0.59289 price action level, which was the beginning of this prior move. So on European equities, we can see the German DAX having some pretty strong momentum after the noisy price action we saw last week. So in this case, if you look at this area here, it has been playing as support. You look at this other area, clearly working as resistance. But then most importantly, we want to understand the sequence of lows here. In this case, comparing the lows we had on Friday and the low price action we have seen as of today. So this is some form of elevation, which indicates a likelihood of a break towards the upper side. So if you happen to have a break, good chance that we see a rally for the week, with targets being around here, and you can extend this trend line all the way up to the previous highs, and then from here we'll be able to target the previous highs sequentially. So in this case, this is the previous high, which is more of a likely target if the market extends the current rally. So for the EU50 cash index, we had a big sell-off last week. So from the 4-hour chart, you can see it was a big sell-off. Then from the H1 chart, you can see we had some sideways momentum before a further drive lower on Thursday and Friday. But now, as we start a new week, a new month, you can see the market attempting to push higher. So in this case, while we still have a range here, we'll need more evidence to see more bullish momentum. For the French stock market index, is the same thing. After the big sell-off last week, the last 2 weeks, last was more of a momentum, and now we could be seeing a break as we start a new month. So there is the Swiss stock market index, also more of a sideways movement, but now it seems like momentum is coming right back into the market, and we could be seeing the market break and move higher, but then we don't have any evidence of that. The market is still in this kind of sideways consolidation, so we don't have an idea or momentum yet. So perhaps we'll be getting more momentum later in the week. The Norway stock market index had a big sell-off last week, and then we found some support. In this case, we'll be waiting to see where momentum takes us this week. So far, nothing much is happening on the chart. So we'll be observing the key levels, which is last week's high and the low. And then we see the direction it will be taking this week. So as for the Netherlands stock market index, we managed to identify a high here, and the market played as expected. So we are not yet down to the lower trend line, which was the idea of the target here. So we remain patient this week. And other than that, I believe we have covered all indices except the Hang Seng index. So for the Hang Seng index, it has been a pretty good bullish momentum. On the daily, you can see we are on the third consecutive green candle. So from the 4-hour time frame, you can see that last week we had a drive lower, and this week we are extending the momentum higher. Of course, if I remove the noise on my chart, it will become much clearer. So in this case, potential target is a sequence of 3 highs that we saw in the last couple of weeks, and now the market is looking to retest those highs. So the bullish momentum is expected to continue higher. So that's it for the day. Also remember to check out the latest episode of the Bullish Banter podcast. We have a new episode that came out late last week. Of course, we'll be bringing in more guests. So if you enjoy the podcast, make sure to leave us a review as well as a comment on what made sense to you or what did not make sense, and we appreciate all kinds of feedback. So we'll be introducing a new Bullish Banter community. There will be a Telegram channel. Of course, I'll be sharing this with you on tomorrow's session or the day after tomorrow. So hopefully we're able to build a strong trader community. So I can see there's one question here on BTC USD. I believe, yeah. So this is what I was looking at, the prior support area. So BTC was finding some pretty good support here in the area highlighted in yellow. And once we broke below that last week, now it seems like a likely target. In this case, looking at the current strong bullish momentum. So that's why I mentioned a target of around 111.9. There's also some resistance here and a potential extension all the way to 115.6. So on the short run, here we are seeing a very strong momentum. We're already breaking the high of last week's on Friday. So good chance that we see this momentum being extended to the previous low, in this case, and resistance around 111.9. So that's it. That's it for the day. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for sharing. So if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure to like and subscribe. If you're watching this on X, like and retweet. We always appreciate all kinds of support. So enjoy a fruitful trading month of September.